And I think this is especially important at this time in history, that we remember our connections to one another, and certainly the connection of the Christian tradition to our parent Jewish tradition. End of that sermon, okay? Beginning of this one. You can observe a lot by watching. The late, great Yogi Berra said that, remember? You can observe a lot by watching. A surgeon was giving a lecture to some first-year medical students, and the surgeon said, you need 2 skills as a surgeon: freedom from nausea and the power of observation. And then the surgeon picked up a beaker of liquid. This fluid looked and smelled disgusting. Now the surgeon dipped her finger into the liquid, and then the surgeon licked her finger. She put the beaker down, and she asked the students to do the same thing. One by one, they gathered their first-year medical school courage, and they all managed to do it without throwing up. The surgeon smiled, and she said, you all passed the nausea test, but you all flunked the observation test. The finger I licked is not the one I dipped into the fluid. You can observe a lot by watching. Pay attention. Open your eyes. The story we heard today about Bartimaeus in Mark's Gospel is not only about the power of Jesus to heal, it's also about gaining true insight and having deeper vision and opening the eyes of the heart. And as with all good stories, the punchline comes at the end. Bartimaeus gets his eyesight back, and he opens the eyes of his heart. And the punchline is this: at once he was able to see, and he followed Jesus on the way. It's not just about physical eyesight, it's about true vision. Jesus invites us to see the world in a particular way, through the lens of compassion. Jesus wants us to see the world as the generous gift of a generous God, with plenty of provision for everyone. And of course, the key is that we all learn to share. Jesus pointed to God's generosity, and Jesus lived that generosity out in his own life. Jesus calls his followers to do the same. And that is how you follow him on the way, like Bartimaeus did. I read about a little girl who loved to walk to school every single day. Well, one day the weather was kind of iffy, but she walked anyway. In the afternoon, a thunderstorm was brewing, so her mom drove to pick her up. Now, the mom saw her daughter at a distance, walking under this dark sky, and then the mom noticed something unusual. Every time the lightning flashed, the girl stopped and looked up and smiled. Well, her mom pulled the car up beside her. The little girl got in. The mom kissed her daughter hello, and then the mom asked, why did you stop and smile? The girl said, God keeps taking pictures of me. Okay, I know. That's naive. It's naive. But wasn't she seeing something of the wonder of the world? Wasn't she just a little bit like Bartimaeus in seeing the way of joy with her eyes open? So maybe that's a story for childhood, okay, but here's one for the grown-up world. I read it a number of years ago in a book called The Faith Club, written by 3 women who were good friends, one Christian, one Jewish, one Muslim. And I like this image, and it was from the Jewish author of the book, enough to share this image as often as I can. A father always told his daughter what he called the paper bag story. He would say, imagine this. Take your problems, all of them, from the tiniest, annoying little stuff to the most horrific, difficult challenges you face. Now put all those problems in a brown paper bag. Imagine that everyone in the world took all their problems and put them in their own brown paper bags. And think of all those paper bags piled up into one gigantic mountain of brown paper. Now, if you were told you had to pick up just one bag of problems and take it home with you, do you think you'd pick up someone else's bag? I don't think so. You would scamper like crazy to find your own bag in that mountain of brown paper. This dad told his daughter that story many times as she grew up, especially when she was facing some kind of real problem. Now, toward the end of this man's life, it was tough. His business had failed. He'd lost most of his money. And the pain of his final illness was bad enough that he was often on morphine. His daughter asked him, "Dad, if you had to do it all over again, would you still want your own brown paper bag?" The father did not hesitate. "Absolutely," he said, "yes." And the daughter decided that if her dad could face his own final challenge, then she could find the courage to face her own paper bag full of problems. This father said yes. His daughter said yes. Even that little girl smiling at the lightning said yes. And of course, Bartimaeus said yes. Jesus himself said yes. Even in that ultimate struggle he faced, remember that he said, "Thy will be done." And he taught us to say the same in that prayer that we use every week here in church. The story of Bartimaeus is about gaining the ability to see, not just with the eyes, but with the heart. Jesus invites us to a certain way of seeing. He pictures a world which is the generous gift of a generous God. And there's plenty for everyone if we are willing to see and to share. Our job is to open the eyes of our hearts. Our job is to say yes. And our job, like Bartimaeus, is to follow on the way. Amen.